Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mike Gurney. I'm with EGLE's Environmental Support Division. I'm going to introduce Kevin Wojciechowski here in just a minute. He is the project manager for EGLE's Remediation and Redevelopment Division. I had a couple quick intro slides that I wanted to share as we get started. First of all, we are recording this meeting, so it will be available on YouTube in the next few days here, but wanted to let you know tonight that it is being recorded. All lines are muted during the meeting, and we'll have a question and answer portion after the presentation here this evening. But to start out here, we'll have everyone muted. And during that question and answer portion, there's a couple different ways to kind of engage with us. So throughout the presentation, throughout the meeting tonight, feel free to use the question and answer box in your Zoom toolbar. You can send questions to us throughout the presentation. And when we get to the question and answer portion, I'll read those off and make sure that we get those questions answered. You can also raise your hand in Zoom and we can call on you and have you unmute yourself and ask those questions. If anyone is just on the phone tonight, you can use #2 or the #2 and raise your hand. And so with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Kevin Wojciechowski and have him introduce the folks that are on the call here today and get us started.
Thanks, Mike. And everybody seeing my screen still?
It looks like I'm still sharing here, Kevin. So I'll stop sharing just to see if it's a little easier.
Oh, let me share again. Okay.
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for this virtual meeting about the Milford drinking water information session. Again, my name is Kevin Wojciechowski. Easy way to remember my Polish last name is Wojciechowski, but if you just want to call me Kevin, that's fine too. And I am the EGLE project manager out of the Remediation Redevelopment Division for EGLE. And an easy way to remember what my division does is we deal with soil and groundwater contamination is what we regulate out of my division. All right. Under the introductions and the agenda, I want to introduce, we had a large team that worked on this and put a lot of time to get this together, but I have a few folks that have joined me tonight to help answer any questions at the end. I'm going to introduce the EGLE folks first. First off tonight, we have Tiffany with us.
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Uskoko-Timko. I'm with the Drinking Water and Environmental Health Division. I work closely with the Village of Milford with their drinking water system and compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act.
Thanks, Tiffany. Next, we got Brandon.
Hey everyone, I'm Brandon Elger. I'm a geologist with the Remediation and Redevelopment Division. I work with Kevin and provide input on geological input that he needs as necessary.
Thanks, Brandon. Next, we have Darren. Darren, we're not hearing you.
Oh, geez. Sorry.
We got you now.
Always have to have one of those people that forgets their mute button. Darren Bowling. I'm the Remediation and Redevelopment Division for EGLE Enforcement Unit Supervisor. So the enforcement unit handles compliance and enforcement issues for the RRD. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Next, with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, we have Joost.
Hello, I'm Joost van Derf, and I'm a toxicologist with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. And I'm here to sort of help answer any health-related questions and been supporting the project on any health-related issues about the exposure that we're talking about today. Thank you.
Thanks, Joost. And next we have the village manager, Christian.
Yeah, Christian Worth, I'm the village manager for the Village of Milford, here to answer any questions about the water system as best I can.
All right, thanks, Christian. All right, so for the agenda tonight, we're going to first start with talk about the proactive approach to protect the village's drinking water system. Then we'll get more into the drinking water and monitoring well data. We'll give an overview of the administrative order. And then we'll get into the parts of administrative order, the emergency and the long-term plans. We'll dive a little deeper into the contaminants of concern, the vinyl chloride and other chlorinated solvent, give you guys more information, and then we'll end with the question and answer session. Before I start this slide, I just want to tonight we're going to be talking a lot about what's happened with this vinyl chloride in the last year. This project really got started back in '89 when first discovery of contamination in the village. So this is not something that's just recently come about. This is something that the EGLE and the village and other has been dealing with, unfortunately, for a long time. The vinyl chloride is something new that's come about, but you know, we've had a long history out here of dealing with the issues in the village. So first off, I'd like to talk about the vinyl chloride has not and never has been detected in the village drinking water wells, in the drinking water wells or the treated water. The village is currently monitoring the drinking water wells and the treated water monthly. This vinyl chloride detection was detected in monitoring well OW16D2, which is less than 200 feet from the village's drinking water wells. And it was found to be above the vinyl chloride above EGLE's Part 201 residential drinking water criteria. And I'll explain more about that later on in the discussion. The administrative order was issued to ZF Active Safety US Inc. ZF, which we also, the site is called Kelsey Hayes, but ZF is now the owner or bought the liability, and they don't own the property anymore, but you'll hear ZF and Kelsey Hayes is this, we're referring to the same property. We issued it because we determined the vinyl chloride detection in the nearby monitoring well posed an imminent and substantial endangerment to the village's drinking water. This administrative order includes emergency response and long-term treatment of the village drinking water. So here is to give you guys a little overview of your drinking water wells and the monitoring well, the troubled monitoring well OW16D2. So your village water, it's a village water supply, but the village water gets the sources from 2 groundwater wells that remove the water from the ground, and then the water goes through a treated iron removal system. And then you can see here, you can see the orientation. We have the orange dots, which is your drinking water wells. You have the monitoring well here right by the playground. You're familiar with the park and the playground. This actually is a stick-up well. It sticks up about 3 feet off the ground. It's in a steel casing. You can see it when you're out there at the playground. But the water comes up, goes to the iron removal plant, and then gets distributed out to the village residents. Later on, we're going to talk about the first water sample from at post-treatment. This is taken at these bathrooms here because this is the closest to when, after the water comes out treated, this is one of the first places it goes to. So that's where the post-treatment samples taken. And then we have pre-water treatment samples that are taken also. Just a little overview of what the difference between a monitoring well and a drinking water well. The easiest way to think about a monitoring well, it's like a straw in the ground that's just sitting there with no equipment in it, has water. The consultants can come at any time, put equipment down, extract the groundwater, and collect a sample and send it off to a laboratory. They'll take the equipment out, the well is capped, and then it can be sampled again at a later time. Where your drinking water wells are much larger straws in the ground. They have pumps on them. And when the village needs water, one of these 2 wells will turn on to supply the water to the village. So that's just a little different between when I talk later on about monitoring wells, our sampling points. They're kind of our first, our alarms system to know where the contamination is at and if it's moving. And then your drinking water wells are physically being drawn, the water is being drawn out by pumps. Let's getting here to the drinking water and monitoring well sampling results. So again, the vinyl chloride has not been detected or ever been detected in the village drinking water supply. The village has been monitoring quarterly for volatile organic compounds. Vinyl chloride is a volatile organic compound. and then sets the detection in May of 2021 at the monitoring well OW16D2, where we got the vinyl chloride. That monitoring well increased. At first, it increased to biweekly, and then eventually now it's sampled monthly, where previously it was sampled semi-annually. And then your drinking water wells and your treated water is also being at an increased sampling rate now to monthly. So it was quarterly, now it's being sampled monthly. Here is a look at the data, just the data since May 13th of 2021, when the vinyl chloride was detected in this well. This monitoring well has historically always contained other chlorinated solvents, but has never had a detection of vinyl chloride up until the May of 2021. And as you can see, it's floated above and below the 2 micrograms per liter, which is also parts per billion. That is what I talked about before, the residential, part 201 residential drinking water criteria is 2 parts per billion. And also when we talk about the drinking water, that is the MCLs, which is the drinking water maximum contaminant level, which is also the same for vinyl chloride, is also 2 micrograms per liter or parts per billion. And you can see in this, the last couple rounds have actually been good. We've not been detecting the vinyl chloride in that monitoring well for the last since early April. This next slide is the same data, just looked at differently. This is a line graph showing 2 is your criteria, and you can see the different sampling dates and when it was above and below that line. Now this is your actual drinking water samples. PW2 and PW4 are the designation they've given to those 2 wells, what they call those 2 wells. So that water, those were non-detect for vinyl chloride, so that's before it's being treated. And then on the other side of this slide is the post-treatment, the treated water that's, I showed you, it's collected from that bathroom in the park, the first tap in the system, and that also has been non-detect. Oh, and just for laboratory analytical detections, they can detect vinyl chloride down to a 0.5 part per billion. Now I'll get to the administrative order. So EGLE issued this administrative order this past March 16th. The administrative order requires ZF to cooperate with the village regarding, and ZF has agreed on April 15th to this order. So they have agreed to the installation of a permanent treatment system on the village drinking water system, the financial assurance for long-term operation of this permanent treatment system, and also too, if we have to get into any emergency measures, which we also call interim response measures. So emergency response measures that are laid out in the order, they're intended to cover the time from now until we gave them 1 year to put this on. And the reason why for that long period of time is they need to design the system. They need to have the approval of the village, because the village is the operator of this system. So the village has to agree to the design changes. They have to work with EGLES, with Tiffany, and the permitting of this and ordering of parts. You can't just get these parts. They got to be specialized. They can't come from Home Depot. So that's going to take some time. So that's why we gave them the year. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to monitor, the monitoring well and the drinking water monthly. And if it was found at any time, a confirmed sample of the drinking water after treatment above the maximum contaminant level of 2 parts per billion, that would trigger the implementation of the emergency response, and that will involve the village, EGLE, DHHS, and ZF working together on that. Now some long-term plans that are, some of them are in the AO, and some of these have been ongoing before that was even out there. The required by the order is the design, construction, installation, operation of additional treatment at the village water treatment plant to remove vinyl chloride. And why we say additional treatment is the iron out removal system is considered treatment at this time. So that's why this would be additional treatment onto the water system. Commitment by the village and EGLE to have the family drive well, drinking water well field permitted and brought online. And these next couple of slides, we'll get into this family drive water well field. ZF will continue to operate a groundwater pump and treat system. They've been operating one since 1999. The pumps are located along Commerce, right along Commerce Road or just off Commerce Road. And they will continue to operate that system to help protect the village water. And then we plan on giving regular updates to the village residents. And later on, we'll show you different websites and ways to get information and get updates on the situation. All right, a little bit more about the family drive drinking water well field. This is going to provide another source of water, but unfortunately it cannot totally replace the 2 wells that are in the park currently. These 2 wells cannot produce enough for peak demand in the village. So the wells have been installed, they're in the ground, but we still need to do some things. We're in the permitting process for the well field, which includes sampling for contaminants, which there was no detection of volatile organic compounds. We also believe this well field is set in an area that is outside of the contamination. So that was not a surprise to us. We think this is in a much safer area of the town. They need to verify water well production, how well these wells can produce, and then designing the pumps and the transmission of the piping to get the water to the current treatment plant. There would not be a new treatment plant. It will be piped over to the existing one. So they're in the design and permitting phase and working with Tiffany on that. And then another bit of good news is part of the infrastructure passed by Congress recently. Milford received $2 million in federal dollars have been secured to bring this new family drive well fill into service. And that will help out. Like I said, it can't replace, but it'll help the other pumps in the park maybe not have to run as much and pull as much water in. Here's a little overview to give everybody a perspective on where these are located off Family Drive there. And you can see the dots, and then you can see the orientation to the old existing drinking water wells and the plant and the OW, the approximate location of OW 16D2. So we feel these are in a lot better area, either up gradient or cross gradient to the contamination that is throughout the village. To get you a little bit up to speed on vinyl chloride and chlorinated solvents. So vinyl chloride is the volatile organic compound, and it's a breakdown contaminant from chlorinated solvents. Chlorinated solvents, trichloroethylene, short TCE, and tetrachloroethylene, PCE, and you have their breakdown products. So here's a nice little graph that shows PCE and TCE and how it breaks down. And we call these from the parent products into the daughter products. There is products out there that contain PCE and TCE, but PCE in the environment will break down to TCE, and from there they'll break down to trans dichloroethylene, cis dichloroethylene, 1,1-dichloroethylene, and then finally to vinyl chloride breakdown to, and then eventually the end product is ethene. So keep these in mind for when we talk about these next slides. Treatment of vinyl chloride. There's various ways of treating vinyl chloride in groundwater, but the way that we're looking to do that, or the village is looking to do, is use air stripping technology. And it's a process of removing vinyl chloride by passing air over a thin layer of water or media. The air removes the vinyl chloride from the water and discharges into the atmosphere. Now, we will have to look at if we will need an air discharge permit from EGLE's Air Quality Division. Most of the time, these systems do not produce enough pounds of contaminant per year. It's a poundage per year calculation. Usually these don't require a air permit because they just don't produce that much and put that much into the atmosphere. This new treatment must go through EGLE's Drinking Water and Environmental Health Division. For Tiffany is the engineer for that, for the review and permitting. And then there also will be, because there's a change in the system, your drinking water system, that kind of kicks in some monitoring of water quality parameters to make sure pipes aren't screwed up and different things aren't screwed up in town with this change of changing the water quality maybe. So there's going to be some new pre and post treatment sampling, and as well as this kicks in some lead and copper monitoring that needs to be done because of the change in treatment. I'm going to get into some of the known sources of chlorinated compounds where we know where they're in the groundwater at the sites, some various sites throughout the Village of Milford. The first one, like we're talking tonight, the Kelsey Hayes, also now owned by ZF, the former Kelsey Hayes site off of Oak Street. Like I said, ZF operates a pump and treat system. We have the former Coast Cleaner off of Main Street. That building is no longer around, but if you guys know where Bubs and Betty's is in downtown, and Beyond Juice, and then there's the strip mall with a Thai restaurant and a clothing store, that is where the old former Co's building was located, and it was torn down, and then that's a small strip mall built. The state is also operating a pump and treat system for the contamination associated with that. And then we've also found, while doing this other Co's, we found that there was a dry cleaner, possibly another Co's location on the north side of Livery Street. Luckily, the state's treatment system captures this plume. And then we have the foremost Spiral Industries off Summit Street, which is currently under development. And right now we have no known deep groundwater plume when it's on from that site. This next slide just kind of shows you the movement. Groundwater in this area generally moves from north to south. North being on this picture is at the top, south at the bottom. You see the plumes here. This is depicting only one contaminant. This is depicting cis-1,2-dichloroethylene. The reason why I chose this is because all three of these plumes here near contain the contaminant, so it shows up. If I was just to show vinyl chloride, only OW16D2 has that, you wouldn't see. So you can kind of see how this stuff is moving south, and then kind of has some curvature because of the pumps of the village runs, since they're drawing so much water ground, start to change and move and kind of pull these contaminants towards those wells. But this is just giving you a general look of the contaminant movement in the town. This next slide is a little busy, but orientation's different. North is to the left, south is to the right. The end, up by the end, is the park and OW16D2, and you can see that OW16D2 had, like, besides the vinyl chloride, had some other chlorinated solvents that have always been historically in these wells. And as you see, as you move from south to north, you see these various chlorinated compounds in these wells throughout, tracing, and you can trace it all the way back to the Kelsey Hayes site. And actually the Kelsey Hayes site, once you get on their site, their wells are non-detect now for volatile organic compounds. And probably a reason for that is Kelsey Hayes has done quite a bit of digging out here, excavation. They've also done some soil vapor extraction remediation. So they have removed source soils from this site over time. And like I said, you can see here, kind of hard to see, the one pumping well, PW4, is over by the mill pond, the condos over by OW23D, OW30. That's where one of the pumping wells is. And their other pumping well is here off of Commerce Street, LVP2. And you can see the blue dash lines take the contaminated water, they pipe it back to the treatment shed where it is remediated and then discharged out to the mill pond. And that discharge and everything is sampled regularly to make sure there is nothing being discharged into the pond. This is a approximation of, I guess, of the capture zones of the different pump and treats and of the village wells, how they're capturing, approximately how they're capturing the water. As you see, as the water flows, this is the same orientation, north on your left, south is on your right. This light yellow greenish area is the estimated village wells there, where they're influencing, where they're drawing their water from. This light blue area is the coast cleaner. Coast cleaner site being here, we're pumping from wells that are in the park, and you can see where we're drawing that water in. And then you have the the former Kelsey Hayes site and their pump and treat, and what in the stuff there, the capture of their plumes. But as you'd notice here, their capture stops pretty much. They don't capture anything much beyond the mill pond. And as we were seeing in this previous slide, we have chlorinated solvents that are beyond the capture. And that what led us to this imminent risk too, because OW16D2 is beyond the capture of the Kelsey Hayes pump and treat system, the capture of the village wells here. So that's why our concern is, because they can't turn these pumps on enough to draw this back to their pump and treat system. So like we talked about before, the ongoing communication to the residents. The village has already set up a website for this, and it will be giving out a lot of the information that I was showing you about the village water and the testing. EGLE is also in the works of forming a website with a little more detail. I plan on having the different correspondence between ZF and EGLE on there. More detailed maps of spiral industry, the Co's plume. So just more detail that's still being built. We just launched our EGLE main website, so our web people are very busy with the new website launch. So as soon as we get that, we're going to have a link that's going to go onto the village website, and you'll be able to link to the EGLE website specifically for this issue. And then if you want to get any updates on anything that EGLE is doing, you can sign up for this EGLE Public Go delivery, and you can get updates about this site and other things going on with EGLE. To kind of wrap this up, summarize it up, again, the vinyl chloride has not been detected in the village drinking water. There are short-term and long-term plans in motion. And the village, EGLE, and DHHS, we're committed to addressing this risk of vinyl chloride to the village drinking water, just like we've been committed to the other contamination in the past. We will continue to work collaboratively towards that goal. We will continue to monitor the vinyl chloride and other contaminants. They will continue to monitor for all the VOCs in the drinking water system. And like we said, we will continue to update the residents on what's going on with this. And last page here is the contact information again. Like I said, I'm the main project manager for remediation redevelopment for this site. Tiffany with the drinking water division and the engineer for this project. Like I said, we have Christian Worth, the village manager, and then Yost. If you have any health questions, you can reach out to him and his contact information there. And I believe that is it.
Thanks, Kevin. I do want to remind everyone that we will have the recording of the meeting here tonight will be available in the coming days. We'll get that posted onto YouTube, as well as Kevin will have the presentation slides available and can distribute those. So we did have one question that came in during the presentation and had to do with the actual physical process of collecting the water sample in the bathroom. So the question is, are those treated water lines in the bathroom location, are those flushed prior to collecting the samples?
I don't know if Christian, you want to take that, or?
Yes, they are. Those are flushed. There's the water runs for a few minutes. that water is not part of the sample. So it's not getting what's in the pipes. It's getting a sample coming out of the treated system.
Great, thank you. What is so, and I may, the question is, what is the depth of the sampling well? So I don't know if there are multiple sampling wells, but Kevin, if you want, I don't know if you're the best one,
Yeah.
but what are the depths of those wells?
So yeah, there is various depths. OW16D2 is screened from 90 to 95 feet, which does mimic. Now the screens on the drinking water wells are much longer, so they can take more water in. But we are in the village water wells are at a similar depth to that. They do stretch a little deeper than that, but they are in that 90 to over 110 foot range of drinking water wells. But the monitoring well that is of concern is screened from 90 to 95 feet.
Great, thank you. We do have a hand raised, so I'm gonna see if I can allow Philip. I think I have allowed you to unmute yourself if you want to try and ask your question.
You did. Hi, this is Phil
Excellent.
Wiper. So it sounded like you caught it right away. The order went in effect and you're on top of it. And when this has happened in other places around the state, I mean, you're following the right procedure to stay right on top of this. And there's nothing detected within the village, right?
Correct. Yes, this is, yeah, we didn't want to wait for it. So yeah, no, we use that imminent and substantial danger as part of our part 201 rules and regulations. So we use that, and yeah, we felt, and the village was definitely on board for protecting the drinking water system.
Yeah,
And doing it before and having all these plans in place. So even if hopefully it doesn't, hopefully we never see it, but we have the plans and everybody's on board and we won't be scrambling around.
No, thank you. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Hey, Kevin, that kind of led right into a question we had coming in. So if this is detected in the drinking water, can you clarify then what those immediate response activities would be to address that?
Well, we would, notify and try to get the village, notify residents, and then we'd be working with DHHS to figure out, do we need to do bottled water? Do we need to distribute filters? That would have to be a decision once it's made, once it's detected, to decide what exactly we would do. But we have DHHS there waiting on board, and the local, and also Oakland County Health Department is also in the loop, so that we can react with what we need to, when we decide what we need to do.
Okay, thank you. There's a question about a private well in town. So if there's a private well in town, the question is the assumption that if they're drawing, are they drawing from the same source? Is that okay? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, if I don't know if maybe need to do this offline to get more details, but I could, if I knew where it was located, we could look it up. We most time do have water well records that I can look up and see. Most likely you're down in this similar aquifer because it's such a good producing aquifer down at this point. But the water goes up to as shallow as 30 feet. So your well could be set, theoretically 30 to 35. So I don't know if that person wants to give me more information. I can reach back out to them and talk to them personally, or if they don't want to share it here in the talk, we could do that.
Great. Yeah, so that would just be my recommendation then to that asker is to reach out to Kevin and he can help kind of walk you through that.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna probably read this one straight off the question here. Can you speak to the 97 reading of trichloroethylene with the 5.0 groundwater surface water interface criteria in OW2D2 as mentioned in the Arcadis report?
Okay, let me go. Do they know what slide they were referring to? Maybe this one, maybe. Oh, dear. What was the question again, Mike?
Yep. Yeah. So it's a 97 TCE reading with the 5.0 GSI in OW2D2.
OW5, oops. Oh, okay, hang on a second. Let me try to find what they're talking about here.
Yeah, so it looks like it was well OW2D2 asking about the GSI, if there was a GSI exceedance.
OW. I'm not, well, so the GSI is the groundwater surface water interface number criteria. So with this reading being taken down, if it's deep in the aquifer, it wouldn't have it. There wouldn't be a risk because it wouldn't be venting to surface waters. So that is, yeah, that's a groundwater surface water interface protection criteria number. So something that protects groundwater from venting and getting into the surface water body.
Okay, yeah, there it is. I'm looking at it. So on the slide you have right there, it's OW22, the 5, kind of middle left. Looks like that TCE number is bolded.
Oh, this
so
one
yeah,
here, this 97?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that is, you know, by the time it gets over to, you know, here, it's below the GSI number, or the 29 is, but we don't believe it's venting. We actually believe this plume is going underneath the mill pond and actually does not have does not interface with that pond. It does not discharge out to that pond. It actually dives at the plume. Chlorinated solvents are heavier than water, so when they get in the aquifer, they actually tend to go towards the bottom of the aquifer. They try to find, since they have a heavier molecular weight, and so this contamination is diving underneath the mill pond, the groundwater contamination.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to the person who asked that for sending in some clarifying questions there. So I think, you know, the takeaway point, and Kevin, you know, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but that the GSI, the groundwater surface water interface number, is for really where that groundwater and the surface water meet. And so where those are exceeding currently, it's not actually going into the surface water. So that's not necessarily the most appropriate number to look at if there's an issue there.
Correct.
And when you get to the surface water, the understanding is that the contamination actually dives below that. So again, we don't have the contamination expressing
we're not
itself
picking
getting
it up
into the surface water.
Yeah, we're not picking it up in the surface waters of Mill Pond.
Okay, great, thank you. Does RO filter this contaminant?
I believe so. I'm not an expert in RO, but yes, I volatile organic compounds and PFAS, RO does take it out. Reverse osmosis and also carbon filtration.
Okay, RO and carbon filtration. Okay. There's a question about VI. Is there a potential for vapor intrusion to those homes in the plume on West Commerce Street, or he said similar to the homes on Oak Street? So is there that concern for vapor intrusion in the area?
Yeah, so that's another thing we've been working closely with. EGLE's been working closely with Kelsey Hayes, is the vapor intrusion. Also, I have it going on at our coast cleaner. We also have vapor intrusion issues. So that's another component that's happening here. And Kelsey Hayes, as consultant, Arcadius, has gone out and done an extensive VI investigation of the home located at 515 Oak. They've actually gone inside that home, done indoor air and what's called sub-slab soil gas sampling, which is basically sampling the the soil gas beneath the basement here. We have not found any unsafe levels in this home or in the garage behind the home. We've also put soil gas wells out along Commerce Street, or Arcadius has, and are monitoring those. It does appear that we have a problem with these under these condos and under these other buildings, but they are going to be doing EGLE just approved a plan for them to do. They have a lot of deep groundwater monitoring wells, but they don't have a lot of shallow ones. And we're more concerned with vapor intrusion. We're concerned with that, where the top of that groundwater, because that's where they're going to volatilize. That's where the contamination is going to volatilize and possibly get into construction. So actually very soon, they're going to be going out here and installing more shallow groundwater wells to split the aquifer, to get the very top of that aquifer, to see if they need to set any more soil gas wells in this area to look. So as of right now, we really were concerned with 515 Oak, but because that's where we had the highest levels outside that building. But when we went inside the building and under the building and tested the building air, the residence air, it was not above any criteria, or I don't think it was even detected inside 515, which 515 was built in the 1800s. And based on construction too, we were definitely concerned with, there's a lot of dirt down in the basement, not crawl space, but just, uncovered areas. So that was good. And so, there is that they're looking, that's a separate thing they've been working on. And we just approved a plan to move forward with that. And then, like I said, I've continued to work on the codes in downtown. We also have a vapor problem there that we're going to be doing some pilot studies on this summer. So you're going to see a lot of activity up by the Old Coast Cleaner site because we got a pilot study. We're actually going to try to do some remediation up there at the codes and try to pull some contamination out of the ground. So a lot going on in Milford.
Great. Yeah, thank you. There's a question about the plan that you just talked about to go and do some of that. So the question is, there's the plan that's been approved. There wasn't the communication maybe that this individual was hoping for. What were residents in the condos and the residential homes, were they notified of this plan, of this these proposed actions moving forward?
They will. There's a few of them that will be. I know there's a few along Commerce Road that have asked the village and asked Arcadius, the consultant, to give them notification whenever something's going on. So I don't think Arcadius has finalized the plans. We approved it just a little while ago, and their focus has been on, correctly so, has been on this, but more on this Ionochloride issue right now. So I don't think they have the field work scheduled, but when that field work is scheduled, those notifications should go out.
Okay, so the conceptual plan has been approved, but the actual field work going out and sampling the homes hasn't been planned yet. And once that happens, they will be notified.
Correct.
Okay. There was and maybe it kind of dovetails into one of the previous questions, as you sort of talked about broadly, kind of the future work that is required to be done. It looks like, is it OW7D that has some of the TCE numbers are right outside of that residence. So again, I think that's, you mentioned it's all kind of part of the future plan to go and continue to assess that. Just from what you've seen, I mean, are there any specific concerns kind of I think we're going to kind of shift into some other questions here, but specific concerns with like individual residences, or is it really we haven't quite gotten that full picture yet and we're still looking at that?
No, I mean, we believe as of right now, the first indications as far as for groundwater for sure, because these residents are not drinking. There's not a well in this yard here by this OW7D where they're drawing out of the ground. And as you can see, even though there's these contamination here, there are pumping and capturing that area underneath this shaded area is being captured and pumped and treated. We've known before this vinyl chloride showed up, this plume is been pretty stable, and this vinyl chloride has finally shown up. But as far as the plume is concerned, it's been being monitored for all these years, and it does seem to be pretty stable. And they're really, as far as the vapor, with those numbers are right there right now, the vapor wells have shown that there shouldn't be a concern in these homes, because you also have to take into account, like, these wells are deep sometimes with water over the top, and sometimes the water actually stops, can cap vapor intrusion. So the groundwater is very deep here. Sometimes you don't, like I said, you don't hit it till you go 30 feet down, which is kind of uncommon for Southeast Michigan. A lot of times you can find groundwater within a couple feet. So the groundwater is very deep, which makes it good because it allows for these contaminants to attenuate and break down before they come up into these homes. So the contamination is not really super close to, even if you have a basement, you still have a pretty good distance from the actual contaminated water. So as of right now, we're not seeing any risk vapor intrusion wise from this groundwater contamination that sits underneath these, that's located beneath these structures.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Can you flip back to slide 14, I think it is? That'll be the parent. There it is. And then their question was, what are the health effects of vinyl chloride? So you may be designating an answer here, but what are the health effects of vinyl chloride?
Yeah, Jost, do you want to?
Oh yeah, that's me.
That's
Not a problem. Yeah, so with the vinyl chloride in the drinking water, the bigger concern that we know from animal studies is cancer risk. So there's a slight increase in cancer the longer you've been exposed to vinyl chloride, and there's very specific liver cancers that have been shown in these animals, not necessarily in humans yet, but that's sort of what we base the risk on. So that's why we take this very seriously. Even if there's been no exposure yet, there's nothing detected yet, but since the health effect is pretty severe, we try to really reduce that, like never have that exposure happen here for the drinking water supply. So I hope that answers that.
Yep, yeah, we got an immediate thank you. So thank you for that. I am not seeing any more questions come in for the immediate. Oh, here we got one more here. So there's a question just on the sampling schedule. So we have sampling scheduled monthly, I believe is what you said. So the question is, why aren't samples scheduled daily? So I think, why did we settle on monthly instead of more routine, more rapidly than that?
I don't know if is there anything with the permitting that says monthly? I just want to make sure I'm not aware of that.
No.
Okay, it's not a permitted or requirement. I get we've decided on that, and the increase we feel is sufficient enough to detect and protect the drinking water. Yeah, there is no magic or idea. There's no thing laid out to say you have to sample it this often a permit or something. We chose the monthly, and like I said, we were at first actually they were doing it more often. We were doing it as you see in here sometimes is even more than monthly at first. Try to get to see where we were seeing it, and then when we saw it bouncing around, we had more confidence in the data to know that that monthly is good enough with the monitoring well and with the drinking water.
Okay, thank you. We do have a hand raised, so I am going to see if I can allow Mira, if you're able to, you can try and unmuting yourself and ask your question.
Hi. Can you explain a little more about the air strippers, the timeline for it, and what the air strippers actually does, and does it release any vinyl chloride vapors into the air? I guess once you can smell vinyl chloride, it's a sweet smelling odor, then that's pretty much too late. Does it increase it in the air, and how does the air stripper work, and what's the timeline for it?
So it's, like I said, it's approximately a year. You kind of already, this iron out system is actually kind of already, it's using similar technology, air, to get the iron out. Yes, vinyl chloride would be taken out of if it was in the drinking water and this system was functioning, it would be taking it out of the water and putting it up into the atmosphere. That's why we talked about, we would have to do testing to make sure that the pounds per year of vinyl chloride is does it need a permit? Now, with these levels and these stripping off, they're very high, unlikely that the poundage would be nowhere near close to requiring a permit or requiring any kind of treatment on the air admissions. So no, we don't believe there should be any issue. It's unfortunate, but this is done a lot. It's put up into the atmosphere and dilution, but it's better than being in the water. So yeah, most likely we're not even need an air permit because this will be very low levels. Will be stripping off and being put into the atmosphere.
Okay, and am I still on?
Mhm.
Are there any other methods for doing it besides air stripping, like the soil vapor remediation?
Well, there is. So there is so when this happened, the village commissioned a feasibility study to figure out what's the most economical and best way to remove this. And so carbon filtration was one, but it's just a lot way more expensive than this. And like I said, these levels being at they're at, there should be no concern for the any kind of air damage to the atmosphere and the air.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Can you repeat, Kevin, when the contamination was first found?
The vinyl chloride was first found May 13th, 2021, from Arcadius doing their normal semi-annual sampling of this monitoring well. And then once they found it, we kicked into this increased sampling. We asked them to sample it more often, as well as we increased. Also, the state of Michigan also has monitoring wells down in that park. We increased the monitoring of those wells. Also, the village has monitoring wells down in the park that they have their consultant. So we have 3 different entities monitoring different wells down in that park. It's just not Arcadius and Kelsey Hayes and ZF Corp doing it. We actually have, like I said, we all increased, everybody that had wells in the park, we all increased our sampling. We did not see anything in our coast cleaner wells. We did not see any chlorinated volatile organic compounds. And then what they were seeing in the wells that the village monitors, they were seeing their usual low level chlorinated contaminants, but not the vinyl chloride. So the vinyl chloride there has been some vinyl chloride hits back in the day at Kelsey Hayes in the groundwater, but there has not been any vinyl chloride hits in any of their monitoring wells up until this point in this one, just recently.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
So as we're looking at this slide right here, why do the detected amounts go up and down? They have this range that they kind of float between.
Mhm.
Why is that the way that it is?
We're not really sure yet. To tell you the truth, we're not really sure, and that's why we're doing more work. They're doing more work out there on this well to see what was going on and why did this show up, and is it part of the the aquifer? Why is it moving around? We don't have an answer to that at this moment.
Okay, thank you. Does EGLE recommend notifying residents prior to any work being done, either on or in front of their homes? Even when we're talking about even the right of ways, what's the kind of the notification as that happens?
We don't really have a policy of notification. I know a few residents have requested that along Commerce Road. I guess if we have more residents that would like that, I think they need to reach out to me, and I can work with the village. So when we can get you into that if you would like to be. But we don't have any policy. We've just recently started up because we've had some people that wanted to know, and Arcadius has been gracious to to communicate with the village so that they can get notification of in advance that somebody's going to be, even though it's in the right of way, it's not property, it's property that's maintained by the resident, but it's not owned by the resident, but we can get you that notification.
Great, thank you.
So just have them email me with your name and your address so that we can get you on the list.
Great, thanks. Are you working with air quality, so EGLE's air quality division, to determine the need for a permit on a potential air stripper?
That will be done once it's the construction stuff and the testing can be done to know what to do, because there's calculations that need to be done for the poundage and stuff. So eventually we will have to either let the air quality division know that we're exempt based on our numbers, or that we need a permit.
Great, thank you. I'm going to try and summarize. We kind of started talking about this one a little bit earlier. I just want to make sure that everyone sort of heard the answer, but there's a question on the flushing versus not flushing the restrooms before sampling, and whether or not one is preferred to get an accurate reading of accurate reading for that sample. And so I know what was said, we flush those samples, the faucet before collecting the sample. And the idea is we really want to get what's in the water and not what's in the pipe. And so if it's been sitting there, we want to flush it to kind of make sure that we're getting a reading of what's actually in the water instead of what's been kind of sitting there in the pipe for maybe who knows how long. Is that a fair, accurate representation, Kevin?
Yeah, and also just like to say, I got this back up, is that they're also taking pre-treatment samples. So that shows, the water before it's messed around with. So not only post-treatment, but pre-treatment, as you see here, they get sampled. So that too, they indicate, say, they see something, in the treated, but they don't see anything in the drinking water. They can know maybe it's there's something, the water is picking up something in this treatment. So that's why both samples, are taken for that reason.
That's a great point. Thank you. Is there, so with the family drive wells, is there any effects of the family drive water mixing with the current Central Park water? Is there any issue with water quality that should be expected if those two water sources are combined?
So that's what I was talking about earlier. Tiffany, you can chime in too if you want. They're going to be there's going to be testing because they want to make sure that they don't want to make sure if there is water quality changes. When they mix this in, there's going to be sampling that will need to be done to ensure that something hasn't changed and pipes get screwed up. So that will be looked at.
Yeah, as part of our permitting and design process, we are collecting water quality data on the family drive well, and we'll look at that in comparison with the existing wells that are online, and we'll evaluate that through the permitting process, and then confirming later on when these new wells go online what the water quality results are. But we'll be able to look at it and get an idea of how closely the water quality is outside of the contaminants that are in it to the existing well system. And they'll be going through the same treatment process.
Great, thank you. Is there any concern for residents digging up soil on their property?
No, because this, if you were going to go trespass on the Kelsey Hayes property, that would be a concern. But this being migrating, once it leaves the site, it's following the groundwater. Again, the groundwater here being very deep, over 20 feet down. So yeah, it's being traveled and being carried in the groundwater. So those upper soils should not be contaminated. You'd have to dig a pretty deep hole if you got down to the groundwater 30 feet, then it could be if you're in that plume area, then you could have some issues. Great,
thank you. The air stripping method, is that capable of removing additional contaminants or just VOCs?
I believe I don't know if I'm not sure on that. I know it's rid of the VOCs. I'm not sure because the iron out kind of uses similar technology that takes out some inorganics. I don't know if anybody's on that could speak to that. I'm just not really sure on if I developed organic compound, what else it would remove.
Yes, it could cause some of the other metal mineral type compounds to drop out at some point. But I believe the primary focus of the air stripper is typically that ability to volatilize.
Yeah, I was going to concur with the same thing. The removal of VOCs is what the air stripper does. Can it remove other things? Possibly, but it's not efficient at that. It's a VOC treatment.
Guys.
Great, thank you. So we mentioned the $2 million in federal funds that are available. How much will residents be, how much have they already been impacted paying for the new wells on their water bill, and or what's the future impact that they could expect to see? That might be a question for Christian there.
Yeah, I think, we've got our engineers working on it right now in terms of the final design of that system. In addition to kind of waiting on the permit process from EGLE, but the preliminary cost estimate was between $2.5 and $3 million for construction and engineering and all that. So, and the grant, my understanding is the federal funds are tied to a minimum of about $400,000 in local funding. So, and that'll be a mix of existing water rates and capital reserve funds that we've got allocated already.
Great, thank you. While you're kind of front and center here, there's a question about whether the village has any interest, any plans to establish a groundwater contamination zone over those affected homes that are in the area.
I mean, I don't know if that's a zoning question or if it's a different angle on that, but we do have a wellhead protection area. We have a wellhead protection program that looks at this stuff on a regular basis. And we look at certainly development happening in there, contaminated sites, as Kevin kind of covered earlier, and monitoring those with what's going on there. So I don't think that I may or may not answer that question, but I don't know what the specific angle is on it.
Okay. Yeah. So I would ask if it didn't answer your question, feel free to submit something else in and we'll try and get you an answer. Don't go too far, Christian. I think I got one more for you here. With the growing population, are there any other options that have been explored for source drinking water in addition to the family drive wells? And again, maybe that is, maybe that isn't a question for you.
Yeah, so the history of the family drive well site dates back probably 20 years ago. The village and its consultants went through a process trying to identify suitable locations around the village where water could be sourced from, drinking water. At the time, I think there might have been some exploration of connecting to regional systems. We've looked at those again recently with this stuff coming up, and it's just the economics behind it are not feasible. And with this, keeping the water source within the village, it's within right of way that the village owns. We don't have to acquire right of way. We don't have to negotiate with other property owners in terms of getting the water out of the ground and to the drinking water treatment system.
Great, thank you. Kevin, are you still there?
Yep.
Okay. Can you clarify for me? There was the question about digging on private sites. Can you clarify that the soils on the Kelsey Hayes site, I think that there's probably some differentiation that needs to be made between, me, Mike Gurney, local resident, going and doing some little construction work in my backyard, but also a site of environmental contamination, disturbing soils on site. So just the difference between that, if there's some clarification to be made.
So you say talking like about the difference if you were to have somebody go work and dig on the actual site itself.
Exactly. I think that's worth clarifying it.
Okay, so they're out there. I know they've done. Kelsey Hayes put some there was some direct contact issues, so they put down some barriers and some demarcation layers with a foot or two of soil above to help protect. If they were to dig, there's safety precautions in place for workers that would be on that site. If any construction was to go on that site, they'd have to wear proper PPE, more than just work gloves, you know, your common leather gloves and stuff. You'd be wearing, the workers would be needing to be in nitrile gloves. Possibly air monitoring would need to be going on depending on the contaminant in the soil, because you have dust kicking up. So you'd have to sometimes have monitoring, especially if there's lead in the soil or something like that. So there'd be precautions taken for anything that's done on a contaminated site, or it should be done if you're doing work on a contaminated site. And then, like I said, with this being an offsite issue, being in the groundwater and flowing down deep beneath your, if you're on a property above this contamination, your soil is still clean. It's not been contaminated by this. Like you said, you'd have to dig down to the actual groundwater table to get to that contaminated soil and groundwater. So that's the difference. So yeah, if you're working on a contaminated site, there's definitely, and there's training that needs to be, you know, what's called 40-hour HAZWOP has this training that needs to be that the workers need to have. So a lot of safety precautions to work on sites like that.
Great, thank you. There's a question on the additional cost that does exist and why that doesn't fall onto ZF or Kelsey Hayes or to that potentially liable party.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about the family drive well, that doesn't have anything to do with this. They are going to, in the order, it is saying that they will pay for the operation and maintenance of this treatment system. Let me just go back a slide. Oh, hang on. So in the order, yeah. So the finance, insurance, and long-term operation. So they will be, they are expected to cover that. Family drive well is, that was not part of this. It was just something we wanted to include that has been being done, that helps the situation.
Great, thank you. And so I think, the way you said that, maybe I'll actually, that's funny. The question just came in here. The relationship between what's happening now and what's happening with the family drive well, them not being related. I don't know if you want, can you expand on that, just how those two, and maybe it's just the way that the information was presented today. I don't know if the family drive well, if that avenue was started well before this, but just can you kind of explain how those two aren't related?
Yeah, Christian wants to step in here too. So I feel like he said the family drive well was something that was commissioned, long ago for the same reasons, to try to find a safer source of drinking water. And I don't know if you want to go further into what happened and the whole timeline on that.
Yeah, and all I was going to say is there's operational benefits to the drinking water system outside of this issue in particular. This certainly puts some importance on it and doing it in maybe a quicker fashion than would otherwise be the case. But there's some operational benefits in terms of being able to maintain existing pumps and rotate through the pumps and the wells in order to just ongoing maintenance and upkeep of the system. So while it certainly helps in this scenario, it's not 100% related to this situation.
Yeah. And I guess, I don't know, once you get this set up, it's also, I guess, would allow for, if you had an emergency situation, I know it's not enough water over there, but you have water from a different source finally.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's operational redundancy and having a water source that's from a different part of the aquifer.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Can you flick to slide 22 for me, Kevin? So I want to just throw up the contact information. We're gonna wrap up here. I want to thank everyone again for joining us this evening, and all the folks here on the that joined the call to help present. I will, like I said, we're gonna have the slides available to everyone. We're gonna have the recording of the meeting available to everyone. I'm also gonna provide Kevin a copy of all the questions that were submitted, and if there's any follow-up that's needed, he can do that and pull that right from there. So with that, Kevin, I don't know if you have any other signing off notes to say. I really appreciate it, and if I'll throw it out to you to close it here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I am for RRD. I manage all the contaminated sites that's regulated under RRD. So I'm the project manager. We used to have back in the day 3 or 4 RRD project managers, but it's nice. It's consolidated. I'm the one, so I'm dealing with all the sites. And so if anybody has any residents have any question, like I said, pertaining definitely to soil or groundwater contamination, I can either I got the answer, or I can find the answer for you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the week, and please reach out with any questions. We're happy to help. Thanks.
Thank you.